with a question regarding the immigration society. The personal being, I was thinking of my own story also, which is completely different, but then we all have the similar stories about how important it is that we always have to prove, but also fight for it. And at some point it becomes normal to be part of the German society. We are just Germans. You brought a lot of examples of people who still don't understand it, infections they don't understand it, and so on. And the trust that the immigrants have to have in the German system. How about the part, this is a personal question, what is the part that makes you still feel Turkish, even though you're born in Germany, you have Turkish roots? You mentioned the German woman with Moroccan roots. We hardly ever think of this other part, and do you think that we have to conceal it by being so busy proving that we are Germans, or how much of it do you personally feel, want to show? It also goes with the question, people ask me, where are you from? No, I mean, where are you really from? Sometimes when people ask me this, I am motivated to actually tell them my story, because I think they should know that they are not just Germans. What do you say?
It's not something that I think of every day, to be honest, but it makes clearly a difference, for example, what your name is. I saw this because I gave my daughter, I was really thinking, what name I can give her, so finally I choose Hannah, because this is something that is above all religions, as the mother of Maria, and this was something for me quite combining all of us. So she has Hannah, which sounds just normal German, and then she has another Turkish name, Selin, which is not in the very first moment. You only see this, it's written with an S. Most people think we do it wrongly, but it's Turkish. So she's only Hannah, that's her name, and nobody for that normally asks her, where are you from, what are you doing, when she just appears with her name. But it's different when you come up with Aydan Özoğuz. And when I married, I was really thinking of, should I be Neumann, become a Neumann? And I said, no, I want to stay Özoğuz. Just because of this. I mean, it wasn't really a feminist thing, to be honest. I could just take another name, but just because I thought it's still not normal that you have such a name in Germany, that people, in the last years it has changed a lot, to say, but in maybe until 8 years ago, people were always like, Özoğuz. Is that correct? Özoğuz. So it's not easy to pronounce, of course not, but you can see, if someone is trying or not, at least. So this makes me feel not Turkish, but as an immigrant, yes, I have a difference maybe to others. And the second thing is at home, to say it directly. I started to cook. I'm not a good cook, but I started to cook at home also for my family, of course, and I love to make Turkish things. And when people come, this is always something positive. If you want to win people, just cook Turkish things or Israeli things, whatever. If you do this, people are always, directly in a very good mood and talk to you. This is so funny because there are some things that are a little bit more challenging and difficult, and some things are quite nice. Or if you have, like a samovar at home, then, oh yes, your Turkish roots, So I try to play with this a little bit.
Yes, so we are all invited for Turkish dinner.
Try my best.
My question regarding the other end, you're saying the rocky path in being in an immigration society. We have labor shortage all over. There are estimates that in Germany we need about close to 500,000 immigrants, immigration to Germany to solve part of our labor problem. How much of an immigration society do you think, you were Minister for Immigration, Integration, do you think, what happened? Oh, do you think we should be? Is there a limit? I mean, this is a huge debate in Germany, also here, I guess everywhere. And does it make a difference what kind of immigrants? Highly qualified, less qualified, Ukraine, Syria?
I think it doesn't work. It doesn't work, right? This one? This one?
Yeah, just open it.
I open it.
We
No,
can
it's
hear
not
you.
open. I tried. It's open. Oh, no, it's red. No. I mean, there's sometimes a red light.
I think you hear me now. How much of an immigration society does it matter what kind of immigrants, highly qualified, less, Ukraine?
I think it's, to be honest, it's always a challenge for every society, first of all. I mean, we have this discussion in the last years in Germany that some people start to say, well, it's because, Muslims, as I said before, it's Islam. But it's not true. If you just look at everything that was in the newspapers in earlier times, the same things were written about Polish people. The same things, and even worse, were written about Romanians, Bulgarians. That doesn't really have to do anything with the religion, since, what we don't really consider sometimes that, like, even many Syrians who came are not even religious. I mean, they don't even know about their own religion. I once saw at Ramadan that, two people from Syria who came to Germany discussed this, what Ramadan is. And the lady said, I never heard that before. I've never done this. Why are you doing this? Why are not eating? And he was explaining to her. And it was so funny for me, to listen to these two. So this is something that the majority maybe sometimes doesn't really realize, that people are so different. You cannot just give them a label, and this is this group and this is this group. But of course, you always have to do a lot. When people come, and you allow them to come, and we do. If they flee from war, whatever, then we say, okay, we will help you, and we have to do something for them. And I think we're doing a good job for the Ukrainians, since we said, okay, you don't really have to register. If you don't want to, you can come and you can stay here. But then again, we have the problem. I just faced it last week. We had an old man, he needed to go to hospital, and somehow nobody knew where he was. He's not registered, nobody knows where he lives, so he's not there. So you cannot really help them, of course. This is the other side. And so I think a good thing is be fair, be respectful to everyone. So be fair, give them a right to learn the language, to do something for the skills. If you just let people sit in an asylum camp and just wait there for whatever, then they cannot really do anything for themselves and not for the society. This is what we did in Germany for many, many years. So now we learn and we say, okay, come, learn German. It's the best thing you can do. Even if you go, even if you can leave one day because war is over, what is bad about learning German, And so, do something for your skills. Like, see what your skills are. We're not perfect, but I think we're doing better.
Any questions from the audience?
Small question. First, I want to thank you very much. It was very, very interesting. And of course, I agree with everything that you said. But I want to mention one thing you spoke about the issue of the visa and the place where the person was born and how he's affiliated to the nation. So I know from my mother's mother, she was born in Vienna, yet she was registered as a Turk in a dear name, even though she was not born in a dear name. When I went to the municipality, I said, what is this, And he said, oh, that's the Turkish way. ancestors who were in Materna, so she's from Materna, even though she was born in another place. So I think this is something more it's not like a big problem, but the way, all the other issues that you spoke about, I understand the value of it and I really respect it.
Thank you. I have this too. It's because in the German passport, it's not the place where you are born, but the place where your father was born. I mean, my father left Kilis when he was 6 years old, and Kilis is at the border of Syria. He left it when he was 6 years old. So he lived in Istanbul all his life. I was born in Hamburg, and still in my Turkish passport I had this Kilis. And I was like, what is that? You know, I've never been there.
But this is also the Turkish side.
This is the Turkish thing, not the German one.
Okay, yes, please.
I just have a comment, and it's also interesting, but, I was born right after the war, and it took 9 years until I received my German Staatsbürgerschaft, that I was a German.
That was fast for that time.
My passport, or that my father that had escaped, from Russia, Poland, came to Germany, living there, working. It took till 1956, that we received our passport. It was amazing. I just can't forget that. I'm born here. What do you think? It's so strange.
But many people from that time, that really touched me, when the Syrians came in 2015-16, there were so many people in Germany who, they didn't say it in audiences, but always came to me and said, I know how it feels to be a refugee. I've been a refugee in Germany when I was a child with my parents. There's so many people who have this experience, even though they were not foreigners. They were German-rooted most times, but they know how it feels when others show a bad reaction to you. So this actually is what helps us now, because those people really help that people can arrive, can feel better, get help, and you have a better coexistence altogether.
Yeah, to add some remark. This transformation that you described very beautifully between the jus sanguini, the right wing, to the use of soli, to the right of birth, is not only a way to face migration. I think it's a great moment in the history of democracy, and it was in France, for example. France is very famous, and also America, for the right of birth. But this was not at the beginning. It was because of immigration to France by the late 19th century that basically the French Republic came to the idea of jus sanguinis. So I think that we should be thankful in some way to the immigration, not only as, well, we have to deal with the problem, but this is a step in the development of democracy, and I think it's not only a question how we deal with the problem, it's an evolution of democracy, and I think maybe you can relate to this remark.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, actually in Germany, I think there was this moment of understanding that, the further we go, the more foreigners live in the country. Even though they are born and raised in Germany, they're called foreigners. So that makes a society somehow not harmonic, in a way. So people understood this finally, and then said, okay, we have to do something about it. So then it started with this jus soli, but then, as I said, in the German Bundestag, it was like, no, not too much, Then at the age of 18, they can decide for one. So, but imagine, this is the theory, right? But now think about it practically. You're born, you have two citizenships. One is from your parents, which is almost everywhere in the world the case, of course, that from descent, you have the citizenship, and then you have the other where you live, the German one. And you have it until you're 18. And then people are telling you, okay, please decide for one. So either you become a foreigner in the country that you lived for 18 years as a citizen, normal citizen, or you maybe, and this is more practical actually, if you have inheritance in your country. Or for me, for example, was very important that I can bury my parents in Istanbul, where they came from. I would have lost the right to bring them to our grave if I had been a foreigner in Turkey. So this really meant something to me, and I was quite happy that I made this creative turn, at that time when it worked, but now we solved it. Finally, we said, okay, we allow it, but now, of course, we have the discussion, and I think it's correct to say this should not go on forever. Because, if of course, my child knows Turkey, and she loves the family, but, will her children really be related to that country anymore? And we should think about a cut at a certain point, maybe after 3 or 4 generations. But this is a discussion now to come.
Yes, it's a lot of discussion. I think we are going to finish, and maybe, Gil?
One short question. I think one of the points that was touched me was when you said that you were actually free from going to the concentration camp, and your mom said you should go because now that it's your heritage. I think that touches on something very deep, because that really touches on the cornerstone of the relationship between Israel and Germany, the special responsibility that Germany feels for Israel. I know that many people in Israel are afraid that immigration to Germany will change that feeling of responsibility. How do you think in Germany this special relationship can be imparted, this feeling of responsibility can be imparted on immigrants who many times feel that not only do they not have a special responsibility towards Israel, but they feel a special responsibility towards Palestinians? And how do you feel that bridge can be gapped? Or that gap can be bridged, sorry. So, how do you talk to that population that doesn't have, it's very hard to tell someone, you accept a heritage that historically wasn't yours, and accept the difficult part of the heritage without necessarily getting all the benefits of yet belonging completely to the Germany.
Well, first of all, I would say there's not that population. It's, like all different people, of course, with different experiences. And I mentioned this one, this one experience that I had, because it made clear to me that, like, so many of us never had a contact with this topic. It's weird to say a topic, but you know what I mean. And we weren't raised that way to learn about it. So some of us learned later, some of us earlier, somehow, some never maybe. But when you're born and raised in Germany, then it's almost impossible not to learn about it. It might be different when people come as adults or later. This is quite a difference, of course. And of course, there are different kinds of relation to Palestinians or to Israelis, but also I would say in the population of Germany, young people really think about the future. Like, how can the coexistence be better? This is a status quo. This is not really, where I heard, like many Israelis also say, what will we do in the future? How will we solve this coming together and being fair and whatever to each other? But we cannot really solve this in Germany, of course. We can show our support, and we can show our respect for this really hard and tough challenge to do here. But I think what we need to do in Germany is to give the chance to get to know this history better. You know, not to expect that people know it, because they don't sometimes. I had some groups that I talked to who never heard this before and even say, who even don't believe that this happened. You know, they say no, not Turkish, others. You know, and so this is, maybe just one more thing, this is so important that you make clear that we as Germany have a responsibility really to help Israel to find a good way to live together. I mean, as you do it in this university, this is such a great job being done here, to have new opportunities for young people who really want to live together and want a good life together and be, you know, and don't want attacks and don't want to have this hatred around. So this is really something that I'm quite proud that I could learn this year and that we can support it maybe even more than we did.
Yeah. So I think we'll have to close because I'm inviting you already after a brief lunch to our next wonderful event with the family and the Schüss Foundation here on selecting some of the leading and most talented art students to be sponsored by the foundation. I think what you just said at the end, on one hand, is a perfect ending, on the other hand, opens doors for a completely new discussion that has many, many facets. And rather than asking you about what the impression is from here, I would like to close by saying, I think I'm very happy because I think we did it right, with tricking you to come to Haifa first, on your very, very first visit to Israel, because I think the first impression is always the most important one.